Good evening, everybody. We have a couple of questions, actually, three of them. So, once again, thank you for the questions. Um, we'll need some more coming up for the sixth the seminar, which is, I think, next, not this Saturday, but the next Saturday.
In North America.
In North America, of course. This question is from Lee Martin. Would you talk about how we can have trust and faith in the midst of control by those who seem to have no wisdom or caring and impose their will on others? Of course, this phenomenon can and does occur at various levels in various settings, of course. Gee, Lee, this is pretty difficult because most of us on this planet recognize that this happens every single day. But it's not only others that do this, we do it in small ways ourselves. If you have a discussion with somebody, you would like to win the discussion. So it's a piece of doing the same thing. It's very difficult for us at these levels because our whole impetus, I guess you could call it, is surviving on these planes in the way that we think we need to, and also at the same time wanting to be considered by others valuable. This is really tricky. And even at levels that I've talked about, people who are able to gain access to consciously of a state, even just a little bit, tiny speck more, let's say, the words are not coming to me, stronger, becoming involved with the astral plane and then looking back and interacting with other people and trying to get them to do things that they think are the only ways to look at things. This happens in everything, except at much higher states where people begin to understand that higher purposes are more fulfilling and more valuable to them in their particular individual growing than winning something on these lower states. This is in everything. I tried to think of something where it isn't the business of kind of manipulation or being pushy about how important each individual idea that exists here on these planes. I couldn't think of any. Our religious backgrounds, through history, for example, have been involved with fighting physically and emotionally for who's better, this group or that group, this way of thinking or that way of thinking, this idea versus that idea. Even in science, historically, there's been people who discovered things and were shunned because it didn't comply with a particular academy that believed that idea was not possibly important. And so individuals were basically shunned. But this is no different than people being hounded because they think one way versus some other way. These things do exist, and they are involved with our everyday life. And this is very difficult for human beings to be able to attempt to counter in areas where they couldn't counter it before. Slight different changes. Even this is difficult to understand how it could be possible. But slight changes in us as individuals begin to effectively have merit in the overall species. And if you can't handle that one, they certainly begin to do a couple of things. Number one, you begin to see this kind of difficulty everywhere. And when you start seeing it everywhere, you have to learn how to back away from judging it, back away from making you feel down and hurt, especially with loved ones that might be doing the same thing, just because they feel so vulnerable and they don't even know that they're doing something similar to it. But also there's, religious background, politics, different philosophies, different organizations that put down other organizations. And granted, the incidentals of things can look as if they're not really as good as somebody else's incidentals. But if you take a look, judgments and assessments of all kinds of things have a strong impact on the people who believe in those things. So therefore, others try to get them to change their ideas. And this is how society operates on these coarser levels. And sometimes it's just hard to understand. And other times we wish we didn't see so well. Sometimes we wish we didn't see ourselves so well and wish we could do something slightly different. I could say that might be progress in being able to perceive something of this nature, but at the same time, it also can be hurtful. And it touches our trust. And this concept of faith is also difficult for us. It's an ideal. It's often considered to be an ultimate ideal. In the meantime, we have to try and work our way through this fog, this maze of trying to make sense of things when they don't make sense at all. I'm sure because you're a thinking person, Lee, you can apply that concept to almost anything you look at and understand that sometimes some of the thinking doesn't appear to be thinking. It appears to be validation, and it makes the person valuable in their own self to think a certain way. And this happens to everybody in their own way. So it's complicated. The concept of faith itself is pretty complicated. As children, we're taught that to have a tremendous level of faith. As adults, we begin to notice that having faith in these lower levels can be very disconcerting. Understanding For example, why a higher level wouldn't interfere and stop some of the nonsense that goes on all over the world. This is one of the biggest things that people have been talking about for a long period of time, at least since the 1600s, since individuality became very, very important, uh, because it was thought that we as individuals have to begin to grow out of a reflex modality and a power modality, which was basically the feudal system. Feudal system is not dead. It's a construct that we have utilized in many modernized ways called corporation. And each of us, in our own sense, is a corporation. If you're honest with yourself, you have found out by now, each and every one of you, whoever is listening, that you are not a perfect corporation. You are not an individual who has all the answers. And there are so many questions and so many difficulties living on these planes. But our structure is there. And it is, how would you call it? I would reflexively say defiant, but it's probably not the best word. It's more, it has a willingness to survive, a hope that we can get through these many diversities that are really incensed with themselves. It's like people have fallen in love with the smallest things. And smaller things appear to be really great. They don't see things always as a collective unless the collective is only related to all of the people who agree with them. This is difficult because in that kind of legitimizing of all or only the options that we agree with, depending on who the we is, then that means that one positive thing about that is you get to see the many levels of engagement the society has within it. And you begin to understand slightly an inkling of the intensity, the various intensities, various projections of mental, emotional, physical ways of engaging with life that exist out there. And huge amounts of people align with various levels. And that makes up our species. You get an inkling of this. And it's uncomfortable if you are a thinking person. At the same time, if you have been wondering about the impact that an individual can have on this, then don't give up on the idea of relating to ideas that are charitable, caring for others, even if they are weaker. Because they can't do anything other than what they're doing. They don't know how. And even if they did, they can't muster the capability to engage with a how. That lies within us all. The very act of expressing a question in its depth as this one implies the vulnerability that we all have in relationship to how to answer a concept and engage with a concept such as trusting that there is something beyond our individual purposes, because we begin to protect our individual purposes. In that, we are vulnerable. We know that it's difficult to trust, and it's difficult to have faith in something that you cannot perceive. So we try to have faith in what we do, or what we believe we should do. And in fact, they become choices, options. And with options, there are some decent ones and some that aren't so helpful. All choices are valuable in their own right, but nonetheless, they don't always work. So that is what happens here on these planes. And that's how difficult it is on these planes for many people, other than people that we know, including people we know. I think there are so many other things that occur with this question. It touches us in a very deep manner. One of the questions that I've had myself is one that I talk about all the time in relationship to loving. We have a definition of loving. It is comforting to us. And then there are coarser levels of loving. And I'm talking about being happy with yourself that you do something that hurts somebody else. This is one of those things that happen. And we consider on our levels, if you do such a thing and it promotes something within you that's valuable according to you, that should be okay. These things are not hidden from another level of perception. But they're considered. That doesn't bother people too much because they have received something that is valuable to them. This appears to be a very negative thing, and it is to some degree. But we all lie within that rubric. And if you look at your life, if you're more than 15 or 16 or so, maybe, or maybe if you can allow yourself to look, suddenly you're faced with the realization that you have an engagement with others living on these same planes. And some are not doing that well. And some are. And an aspect of love may be involved with that. But it's a deep aspect of loving that we do not understand too well. Kindness is one thing to say with the mouth, but the doing is very difficult. An engagement with caring about others may be shunned by those who need caring. It's complicated. So it is my understanding, and this will touch on the next question as well, that this this flow of loving that lies within us. It's almost like a will to do whatever it is that you believe you think you need to do to be the you that you believe you need to be. A strange bunch of words. And that's an act of love on your part for you. And you trust in that at every choice and every moment of your life. And within seconds, sometimes you find out this is not really helpful to you. And in seconds, you find out, other seconds, you find out it's very helpful to you. And invariably, we continue to do the same things. Because if someone considered helping you to do something else, it wouldn't fit for you. Or your history would hold you from doing something that didn't make sense to you. And you were working your way through what you have considered love to be in your life. You have basically engaged the way you have, the way I have, the way anyone has, as an act of love for 1 second of a choice you might make for a particular purpose, whatever that may be. Others may have views about that, but they may not be appropriate views. But you cannot tell them because they won't believe it. They're busy making up their view, their appropriate view from their sense of what they think is true. This is a consistency in our world. Increasing awareness means you get to see this stuff more. This is a bit frustrating. If we are engaged with that seeing the same way, and we will be from time to time, same way as we're engaged, have been engaged all our lives. It touches us. It hurts. We want better for our world, whether it be individually or whether it be as a whole. But this is something that many others are attempting and have been attempting to make sense of, for what it's worth, all through time. At the same time, there has been greed also in our world, because love is not the focus. Love is just, it occurs if you have a focus that has to do with monetary backgrounds, monetary stuff. You will love the fact that you are in love with what you have. In a way, if we could perceive it, that would tell us something. If we were interested in loving beyond what we, on a coarser level, believe is valuable to us. There could be a balance, a whole lot of balance in a whole lot of things. But that definition of balance is a struggle for all of us, whatever that means. It could be a struggle between what you do every day, how you see the world, how you see others, how you judge, how you get to understand what's really going on these planes, and how hard it is to be able to be okay with it. that sense of sympathy or empathy, call it what you wish, you start to notice and feel, and you recognize that you can't do anything about what others do, but you can engage and do a little bit about what you can do, and continue, and continue, and continue, and continue the best you can, because subtly you will become more aware as you grow, because that's the nature of growing. A very difficult question. For me, Lee, I've struggled with this thing for a long time. And it's important to allow yourself to struggle with it. And it seems like you're doing just that. Thank you very much for that question. It's appreciated. Here's another question. I think I missed this question a while ago. I think there were 2 questions that came in, and if I didn't miss it, I apologize in advance. But this is a question that is really not so easy. It's been asked by not only one person, but 2 or 3 people have asked it in maybe the last 2 or 3 months. Is devotion useful in spiritual growth? So many folks have talked about this one. I've listened to people lecture on this particular one. It's amazing to me why we pit one aspect of our engagement with life against others. Like some say, intellectual orientation is the way to go. Only the mind is important. Some people say, well, a mind and emotion are the same thing. So what are you talking about? It all happens up here. And others just look at it and say, well, that can't be any good. We're doing away with all of this other stuff. But each and every person who ever talks about it with great devotion to the idea that they believe has to be true and valuable, more valuable than other valuables, other things that are valuable. It's understandable. It's how we do things here. I think that everybody on these planes with ideas about anything, what they believe, what they want, they desire internally, considers each and everything that comes up through what they believe is their mind, because it's everything's highly personalized now. It's very interesting. I think we had to go there so that we can begin to understand that there's more at work here than just individual personalizations, but we're still stuck right in the midst of the mud. My idea is better than your idea. No, that idea over there is much better than that. And then suddenly it's all your idea. As soon as you hear it, it's yours. I remember an old friend of mine saying, well, you told that experience that you had, so therefore it's in the common now. Anybody can use that experience and call it theirs. I started laughing. I said, anybody may, but it's not their experience. Well, that doesn't seem to mean very much. And I hope in a kind of a way strange as it may sound, and very strange it may sound, that those experiences that each and every one of us have that are related to a touch of engagement with any kind of other state, that does affect the whole, because it's like energy operating through a form to affect someone who lies within the species. Therefore, they affect the species. So partly I would agree, but not fully on the personalization part. Anyway, here's a way that might be interesting to some. I'd ask you to consider this. At the deepest level of higher states, there is a perception within a person at the deepest level, at the highest state, where that deep level, physically, emotionally, and mentally, or mindfully, becomes united. United in every way, energetically. Therefore, when an individual presents himself in and around that other individual, which is, of course, fictional in this particular case, the projection of energy from that individual is marked physically, where that energy is being able to move through that whole system over there, emotionally, on whatever level that may be, on a high emotional level, there is a presence of softness, gentleness, quiet, peaceful, loving. It's still on an emotional level, but it's different than what you might call an emotional person who is pretty intense, which we all have within ourselves, by the way. You may use it differently, but you have it. And mentally, to see where the different levels of mind are engaging with this physical form to express themselves literally on these coarser planes. This would be projected from another onto that fog of quiet, soft, gentle, glowing form. It presents itself there and presents an image of level of development, an image of level of development, period. No judgment applied to any level, just recognition, perception, awareness. If that level can handle a little bit more to support a growing in any of those energetic levels, energy can be helpful there. Energy would be expressed in that particular manner. You mean any level, Ron? Any level. One codicil. One thing that I would think might be important. We must be able to handle a little bit more energy in the areas of our engagement with where we are. In other words, if you fly off the handle fairly quickly, you will fly off the handle faster If you tear up reasonably quickly under certain circumstances, the tearing up will occur more. If you feel love and compassion or hope for others, it will appear more. You have to learn how to gentle you down. With great respect, I say that because automatically in our world, we have been training ourselves without our knowledge to try and hold ourselves in a particular position based on our parental background. We have done that for every year that we've been on this plane. Not consciously, reflexively. We've copied how that should be done as others have done it. We've copied it by literal copy, copying without knowing. We must begin to see that little by little, not too much, so that we can begin to perceive the different levels and maybe be a part of being helpful to others who are growing. In doing that, we are helped to grow ourselves. Wow. Oh boy. This one is difficult to understand. Not only understand, live with. We live every day, every relative moment. We engage with other people, we read things, we look around, a newspaper, we listen to news, and we react and we engage. How can we soften that down, but not soften our recognition and our understanding, and realize that that's an aspect of where we are right now? And perhaps even hope that we can grow beyond it. Hope, including energetic engagement of some kind for a purpose that we may not live to see. Because, change in our species is fairly slow, apparently. But to increase our perception means we begin to understand that devotion is applied to anything and everything that you do. Understanding, attempting to make some sense of, we often call a mental thing, and it may well be. But we all live in an engagement of reflexes. Those reflexes, as they express themselves, are parts of images that we have cultivated and display daily for the purpose of being valued, either by ourselves or by others. Whether they're sneaky, whether they're blatant, or whether they are actually considerably thought out and attempted, so that we at least attempt to at least try not to hurt anybody. But that's an old, very old thing. In India, I think it was called Himsa, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure. It's where the big thing, and certainly the Greeks got a hold of that, I think, from the Eastern traditions. They've had this for thousands of years. And Hippocrates, a great doctor, Greek, doctor attempted to not harm anyone. This was the concept of being a helper, a doctor of medicine. This idea is an interesting idea. Attempting to use it, you as an individual, in your daily engagement with life, not read about it, do it, is a lot more difficult. If you take the other person that you're engaging with, if you take them and put them in your mind, how will they respond to this? Of course, we react and talk too quickly for this because we're engaging with ideas that truly come out of our mouths. And we try to do that the best we can. Because when they come out of our mouths, in theory, they are valuable. That's the process of these states. It's not a negative thing, it's just what happens here. So this idea of, is devotion useful in spiritual growth? I believe it is. If you believe you have to read 15 of the most difficult books on spirituality that we have at our disposal here on this planet in 2023, you better be devoted to that idea. Because it's going to push you right to the edge of your interest. Because there's going to be repetition in different words about the same things. And you're going to find out there are boundaries to our knowledge here on these planets. Then be devoted to going beyond the boundaries. Physically, emotionally, mentally, because that's what we are as a personality. And do it in relationship to the best you can on a daily basis. See how that works. You will find, if you're honest, and you're not an angelic form in disguise, although some people might think they may be, who knows? You may find that it's very difficult to do. Do the best you can with it. Don't dismiss the times when you can't do it. It will help you to know that you are a human being living on the planet Earth. And it will help you be humble. It will help you be humble. It won't make you be humble. This is a key thing. At those higher states, humility is the key for them. So that the personality will not glow more and interfere with that transmission that can occur through them in the process of helping a species. Helping a species, remember that they are engaged in love. And it's used to initially in these levels to find a love for ourselves. So you can begin to find love beyond ourselves. This is very difficult for us to make sense of. If you can make sense of it, good for you. And all the rest of us will do our best. I wish everybody well with that one. I think that's where I'm going to end things tonight. We have a seminar coming up on, I think it's the 6th, in North America. And once again, it's your seminar. If you can, please send in some questions. I don't look at questions as being these are better or worse, or they're often pretty well all pretty interesting questions.
Why is it important to send them in rather than say them up to someone?
I think it's important to send them in because it gives you time to think and engage and begin to consider what your answers would be so that we can then look at it from a different perspective. I wish you well with that. Thank you. So we're going to meditate, and I'll just get some music. Great. Take care, everybody. I wish you well.
Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. Yedidamam Yavasikam Tam Sharanam Gacchami. Yedidamam Yavasikam Tam Sharanam Gacchami. Tam Sharanam Gacchami. Tam Sharanam Gacchami. Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. Yedidamam Yavasikam Tam Sharanam Gacchami. Yedidamam Yavasikam Tam Sharanam Gacchami. Sharanam Gacchami. Tam Sharanam Gacchami. Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. Yavasikam Tam Sharanam Gacchami. Yavasikam Tam Sharanam Gacchami.
Now we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding on your own. And please take care. Good night, everybody.